You spend roughly 1/3 of your entire life in your bedroom. 8 hours a night, every night, your respiratory system processes the air in that one room more than anywhere else you inhabit. And during sleep, your breathing changes. It becomes slower, deeper, more complete, pulling air further into the lungs than during the shallow breathing of a waking day. What is in that air matters more than you think. Inside a typical modern bedroom, the air is not neutral. It is active. Invisible compounds move constantly, released from mattresses, carpets, furniture, and painted surfaces. These compounds are known as volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. Studies conducted under large-scale indoor air quality investigations have shown that indoor air often contains 2 to 5 times higher VOC concentrations than outdoor air. In tightly sealed, climate-controlled homes, that number can rise even further, up to 10 times higher. And the sources are everywhere. Formaldehyde slowly releases from pressed wood furniture and mattresses. Benzene drifts from synthetic materials and carpets. Cleaning products leave behind chemical residues that remain suspended in the air long after use. This is the air you sleep in for 8 continuous hours every night. Now consider something critical. Sleep is the period when your body is most vulnerable to environmental exposure. Your immune system is regulating. Your brain is recovering. Your lungs are operating in their most efficient, deepest breathing state, which means exposure is not just constant, it is amplified. But in that same room, something else can exist. A second system, a biological layer, silent, continuous, and responsive. Living plants. Placed strategically, these plants do not replace ventilation or mechanical filtration, but they add something those systems cannot, a biological process that interacts directly with airborne compounds. They absorb, they break down, they transform. And in some cases, they even release oxygen when you need it most, during the night. What you're about to see is not decoration. It is applied environmental control. 12 plants, each selected for a specific function, each working during the exact hours you are asleep. Now here's where this changes. Before selecting the plants, the mechanism matters, because plants do not clean air in a vague or decorative sense. The process is specific, measurable, and rooted in decades of research. The foundation begins with a controlled experiment. In 1989, researchers conducted what became known as the NASA Clean Air Study, a series of tests designed to evaluate how plants interact with indoor air pollutants inside sealed environments. Inside these chambers, plants were exposed to common indoor toxins: formaldehyde, benzene, trichloroethylene, xylene, and ammonia. The final result of the study was remarkably clear. Plants removed measurable amounts of these compounds from the air. But this is where interpretation becomes critical. These were sealed chambers, not open rooms, which means the results represent maximum efficiency conditions. In a real bedroom, air is constantly moving, diluting, and reintroducing compounds. So one plant alone does not transform a room. The density of the plants matters significantly. Research suggests that approximately 2 plants per 100 square feet are required to produce noticeable changes in air quality. More plants increase the effect. But the most important discovery came after the original study. Because the leaves are only part of the system, the majority of VOC removal does not happen on the surface of the plant. Instead, it happens directly below it, deep inside the soil environment itself. This zone, called the rhizosphere, is where microorganisms live around the plant's root system. These microbes actively break down organic compounds in the air, using them as a carbon source. In simple terms, the pollutants become fuel, which means a plant is not working alone. It is operating as part of a living micro-ecosystem. And that changes how effectiveness is measured. Larger pots, richer soil, and more developed root systems all increase the capacity for air processing. Not just the plant, but the biology around it. And there is another layer to this. Plants do not only change the air, they actually change the state of the body. Controlled studies have shown that interaction with indoor plants reduces cortisol levels, the primary stress hormone. Lower cortisol directly affects sleep onset, nervous system regulation, and overall sleep depth. So the effect is dual. Plants influence the air you breathe, and the state your body enters before sleep. This is not passive decoration, it is an active biological system. And once you understand that, placement and selection become precise. Now let's move into the first plant. Most plants release oxygen during the day, but at night they reverse the process. However, one plant operates differently, the snake plant. Scientifically known as Dracaena trifasciata, it uses a process called CAM photosynthesis. Instead of opening its stomata during the day, it opens them at night. This means it releases oxygen while you sleep, making it uniquely suited for your bedroom environment. It works when you need it most. It is also one of the most effective plants for removing formaldehyde, a common indoor pollutant found in mattresses and furniture. Minimal care, continuous operation, and night-specific oxygen. The snake plant is biologically aligned with the way you sleep. Air quality is not only about what is removed, it is also about how the body responds to what remains. The next plant does not rely primarily on absorption or filtration. It works through inhalation. Eucalyptus. This plant releases a compound known as 1,quate cineol, also called eucalyptol. When dispersed into the air and inhaled, this compound directly affects the respiratory system. It supports a process called mucociliary clearance, the body's natural mechanism for removing particles, mucus, and pathogens from the airways. Inside the respiratory tract, microscopic hair-like structures called cilia move rhythmically, pushing unwanted material upward and out of the lungs. Eucalyptol enhances this process, which means the air you breathe is not only cleaner, your body becomes more efficient at cleaning it. This is especially relevant during sleep. At night, airflow slows. The body shifts into recovery mode. And for individuals with congestion, allergies, or mild airway inflammation, this is when breathing resistance becomes most noticeable. Eucalyptus changes that sleeping environment significantly. Clinical studies have shown that eucalyptol reduces mucus production, improves airflow, and decreases respiratory resistance in conditions such as asthma and chronic bronchitis. While these studies often involve concentrated doses, the same mechanism operates at lower levels through ambient exposure. A small plant, a consistent release, a measurable effect over time. Placement determines effectiveness. Eucalyptus requires bright light, so positioning near a window is essential. This ensures the plant remains healthy enough to produce its aromatic compounds. There are two practical implementations. A live potted plant provides continuous, subtle release, or a dried bundle can be hung in a nearby humid area, such as a bathroom or near airflow, where moisture activates the release of volatile compounds. Both approaches create the same outcome: a bedroom atmosphere that supports easier breathing, not by removing everything from the air, but by improving how the body processes what remains. This introduces a different category of plant function, not filtration, not oxygen production, but physiological support. And when combined with air cleaning plants, it completes a more comprehensive system, because improving sleep is not only about cleaner air, it is about easier breathing, and this is where the next plant becomes critical. Most high-performing air-purifying plants come with a trade-off. They are effective, but they are also toxic. Especially in environments shared with children or pets, this creates a limitation, because in a bedroom, proximity is unavoidable. The next plant removes that limitation entirely, the spider plant. Scientifically known as Chlorophytum comosum, it is one of the few plants that combines high-efficiency air purification with a completely non-toxic profile. This distinction makes it uniquely suitable for bedrooms. But safety alone is not the reason it belongs on this list. Its performance is exceptional. In controlled testing, spider plants removed up to 95% of formaldehyde from enclosed environments within 24 hours. Formaldehyde is one of the most persistent indoor pollutants, released continuously from furniture, fabrics, and construction materials. Which means removal is not a one-time event, it is a constant process. The spider plant performs this continuously through two mechanisms. The leaves absorb airborne compounds directly, and the root zone, supported by microbial activity, breaks them down into simpler, non-harmful substances. This dual-action system makes the plant highly efficient relative to its size. But there is another advantage: replication. Spider plants produce offshoots, commonly called babies, along trailing stems. Each of these can be replanted to create a new, fully functional plant. Over time, one plant becomes many. And this matters because air purification scales with density. More plants equal greater cumulative effect. Instead of purchasing multiple plants, the system expands on its own. Placement enhances performance. The spider plant's trailing structure makes it ideal for elevated positioning, hanging baskets or high shelves. This increases air exposure while keeping it safely out of reach. It also allows multiple plants to occupy vertical space without crowding the room. Light requirements are minimal. It thrives in medium indirect light and tolerates lower light environments better than most, which makes it adaptable across nearly any bedroom condition, safe, efficient, self-multiplying. This is one of the most practical plants you can introduce into a bedroom system. But air quality is not only about removing pollutants. In many bedrooms, the problem is the air itself, too dry. And that is where the next plant becomes essential. Air quality is not defined by chemicals alone. Humidity plays an equally critical role. In many modern bedrooms, especially in colder seasons, indoor heating systems reduce relative humidity to extremely low levels, often between 20 and 30%. This is far below the optimal range for sleep and respiratory health. Dry air affects the body immediately. It dries nasal passages, increases throat irritation, and promotes mouth breathing, which reduces sleep efficiency and contributes to snoring and disrupted rest. Most solutions rely on mechanical humidifiers, but these require maintenance, cleaning, and consistent monitoring to avoid microbial buildup. There is a biological alternative, the parlor palm. Scientifically known as Chamaedorea elegans, this plant functions as a natural humidity regulator through a process called transpiration. Water is absorbed through the roots, moves through the plant, and is released as vapor from the leaves. This process happens continuously, silently, without mechanical input, and when scaled across a room, it begins to influence ambient humidity levels. Unlike smaller plants, the parlor palm has a relatively large leaf surface area for its size, allowing it to release more moisture into the air over time. The result is subtle but meaningful: a gradual increase in humidity, a reduction in dryness, an environment that supports more stable breathing during sleep. But humidity is only one part of its function. This plant was also identified in controlled testing as effective in removing compounds such as formaldehyde and benzene, which means it contributes to both sides of air quality, chemical reduction, and environmental balance. Placement determines efficiency. The parlor palm works best as a floor-standing plant, positioned in a corner or near a window, where air circulation can distribute the moisture it releases. It also functions visually as a structural element, softening the room while performing its biological role. One of its most important advantages is tolerance. Unlike many palms, it thrives in low to medium indirect light. This makes it viable in bedrooms where direct sunlight is limited. Minimal light, continuous output, dual function performance. This is not just a decorative plant. It is a passive environmental regulator, and in dry indoor climates, it becomes essential. But dryness is only one type of imbalance. In some bedrooms, the problem is the opposite, and the next plant is designed specifically for that. Stay tuned for the next phase of air quality management. Not all airborne pollutants behave the same way. Some compounds are lighter and disperse quickly. Others are heavier, lingering closer to surfaces, settling into lower air layers, and remaining concentrated for longer periods. These include compounds such as benzene, toluene, and trichloroethylene. These are among the most persistent indoor pollutants, often associated with synthetic materials, adhesives, paints, and residual smoke exposure. Removing them requires more than surface-level interaction. It requires volume. This is where the Dracaena becomes critical. A group of plants within the Dracaena genus, including varieties such as Janet Craig, Marginata, and Warnecki, were consistently ranked among the top performers in controlled air purification studies. Their effectiveness comes from scale, larger leaf mass, deeper root systems, and more active rhizosphere zones. Together, these increase the plant's capacity to process complex organic compounds over time. But the key factor is placement. Unlike plants positioned at eye level or above, Dracaena performs best when placed on the floor. This is not aesthetic, it is functional. Heavier VOCs tend to accumulate in lower air layers due to their density. Positioning the plant at floor level allows the root zone, where most breakdown occurs, to interact directly with these concentrated compounds. The result is targeted processing, not generalized air improvement, but focused reduction of specific high-impact pollutants. This makes Dracaena especially relevant in bedrooms with older furniture, synthetic materials, or any history of indoor smoke exposure. Light requirements remain flexible. It tolerates low to medium indirect light, making it adaptable across most bedroom environments. However, like many high-performing plants, it comes with a limitation. It is mildly toxic to pets, which means placement should account for accessibility, ideally positioned in areas where contact is unlikely. Despite this, its value remains high, because few plants combine this level of VOC range with structural efficiency. It does not specialize in one compound. It addresses many, and it does so continuously. But air quality is not only about chemical removal. In some environments, biological particles become the dominant issue: mold, spores, excess moisture, and the next plant is designed to address exactly that. In many bedrooms, air quality problems are not only chemical, they are biological. Microscopic particles, mold spores, can circulate through the air. Especially in spaces connected to bathrooms, basements, or humid climates, these particles are invisible, but their impact is not. They affect breathing, trigger allergies, and disrupt sleep quality over time. Managing this requires controlling moisture. Because mold growth is directly tied to humidity levels, the next plant operates at that exact intersection, the peace lily. Scientifically known as spathiphyllum, it performs two critical functions simultaneously. It helps regulate humidity, and it contributes to airborne pollutant reduction. Through its natural processes, the peace lily absorbs moisture from the surrounding air and uses it within its system. This creates a subtle stabilizing effect in overly humid environments, reducing the conditions that allow mold to thrive. At the same time, controlled studies have shown that it removes multiple airborne compounds, including benzene, formaldehyde, and trichloroethylene. But one capability stands out: acetone removal. Acetone is commonly introduced into bedrooms through cleaning products and cosmetics and household materials. While often overlooked, it contributes to overall air quality degradation when present in enclosed spaces. The peace lily has demonstrated one of the highest removal rates for this compound among commonly available plants. Placement enhances both functions. It performs well on elevated surfaces, dressers, nightstands, or areas near moisture sources such as bathroom-adjacent walls. These locations allow it to interact with both humidity and airflow effectively. Light requirements are minimal. It thrives in low-light conditions, making it one of the few flowering plants that performs reliably in dim bedrooms. And it provides a built-in feedback system. When water levels drop, the plant visibly wilts, a clear signal that hydration is needed. After watering, it recovers rapidly. This responsiveness simplifies maintenance and reduces guesswork. However, there is a limitation. The plant is toxic if ingested, which means it must be placed out of reach of pets or children. Despite that, its role is specific and valuable. It does not just filter air. It helps stabilize the environment that determines what grows within it. And in bedrooms where moisture is elevated, that becomes essential. But not all air quality issues come from moisture. Some come from the air itself, suspended particles that never settle, and addressing those requires a different kind of plant. Not all air pollution exists as gas. A significant portion exists as particles, dust, fibers, microscopic debris suspended in the air, commonly classified as particulate matter, including PM2.5 and PM10. These particles behave differently from gases. They do not dissolve or break down easily. They remain suspended, circulating continuously through airflow, especially in enclosed spaces like bedrooms, and over time they are inhaled deep into the lungs. Removing them requires surface area, not just chemical processing, but physical capture. This is where the weeping fig becomes essential. Scientifically known as Ficus benjamina, it functions as a large-scale particulate capture system. Its advantage is not a single mechanism, it is structure. A mature weeping fig develops a dense canopy, hundreds of leaves, each contributing to total surface exposure. These leaves interact with airborne particles through two processes: electrostatic attraction and mechanical trapping. Microscopic textures on the leaf surface capture and hold particles as air passes across them. Over time, this reduces the concentration of suspended matter in the surrounding environment. The larger the plant, the greater the effect, which makes scale critical. In larger bedrooms, especially those exceeding 200 square feet, smaller plants alone are insufficient. A single large plant can outperform multiple smaller ones when it comes to surface-based capture. Placement determines effectiveness. The weeping fig should be positioned in the brightest available area, ideally near a window. Where airflow naturally circulates through the room, this ensures maximum interaction between leaf surfaces and moving air. But there is a constraint. This plant does not tolerate relocation. When moved, it responds by shedding leaves, sometimes extensively. Once placed, it should remain in a fixed position. To stabilize and maintain full canopy density. After acclimation, it becomes consistent, reliable, and highly effective. In addition to particulate capture, it also contributes to the removal of compounds such as xylene and toluene. But its primary strength remains physical filtration, not chemical transformation. This introduces another dimension of air quality control: gas removal, humidity regulation, and now particle capture. Each plant adds a layer, but some plants go even further. They do not just respond to pollution, they signal it, and the next plant does exactly that. Most air purification systems operate silently. They remove, they filter, but they do not communicate. You cannot see when air quality changes. You cannot detect rising pollutant levels without external measurement tools. The next plant changes that. Aloe vera, scientifically known as Aloe barbadensis Miller, it performs a dual function: purification and indication. Like several plants already covered, aloe has been shown to remove compounds such as formaldehyde and benzene from indoor air. But what makes it unique is how it responds to environmental stress. When exposed to elevated levels of airborne toxins, particularly formaldehyde, the leaves begin to develop brown spots or markings. This response acts as a biological signal, a visible indicator that pollutant levels may be rising beyond safe thresholds. It does not require sensors or devices. The plant itself becomes the monitor. Healthy, clear leaves suggest stable air conditions. Discoloration suggests a problem, and that problem can then be investigated, whether it originates from new furniture, cleaning products, or poor ventilation. This transforms the plant from passive system to active feedback mechanism. Placement is simple but critical. Aloe requires bright light, more than most plants in this system. It performs best near a window where it can receive consistent indirect or partial direct sunlight. This makes it ideal for placement on a nightstand or windowsill, close enough to observe, close enough to access. Because aloe offers another function, its internal gel. The gel inside the leaves contains compounds known for anti-inflammatory and skin repair properties. Applied directly, it can soothe irritation, hydrate skin, and support healing, particularly useful as part of a nighttime routine. This creates a dual-use system: air quality support and immediate practical benefit. Minimal maintenance, high visibility, continuous feedback. Aloe does not just improve the environment, it tells you when the environment changes. But not every plant works through filtration or detection. Some operate at a neurological level. They influence the brain directly. And the next plant does exactly that. Stay tuned for our deep dive into the neurological power of nature. Discover the unseen connections in your living space. Not all improvements to sleep come from cleaner air. Some come from how the brain transitions into rest. The next plant does not primarily filter. It influences the nervous system: lavender. Scientifically known as Lavandula angustifolia, it releases a volatile compound called linalool. When inhaled, linalool interacts with the brain's GABA-A receptors, the same receptor system targeted by many pharmaceutical sleep aids. These receptors regulate neural activity. When activated, they reduce excitability in the nervous system. The result is a calming effect, reduced anxiety, and a faster transition into sleep. This is not theoretical. Multiple controlled studies have examined lavender's effect on sleep quality. Key text on screen: improved sleep efficiency. A comprehensive meta-analysis evaluating multiple populations found consistent improvements in sleep efficiency, reduced nighttime awakenings, and increased duration of deep sleep. The mechanism is direct. not symbolic, not psychological, chemical. Linalool enters the system through inhalation and influences neural signaling, which makes placement critical. Lavender must be positioned close to the breathing zone, a nightstand or a windowsill near the bed. Distance reduces concentration, proximity increases effectiveness. Light requirements, however, are demanding. Lavender requires bright light, ideally several hours of indirect or partial direct sunlight per day. Without sufficient light, the plant will not produce the compounds that make it effective. In low-light bedrooms, a dried lavender bundle becomes a viable alternative. It continues to release aromatic compounds, though at a reduced intensity over time. This ensures the function remains, even when live growth is not possible. Unlike other plants in this system, lavender does not target pollutants. It targets the transition into sleep itself, the moment where most sleep disruption begins. By lowering physiological arousal and stabilizing neural activity, it creates the conditions required for deeper, more consistent rest. This adds another layer to the system: air quality, humidity, particle reduction, and now neurological influence. But there are still two critical components missing: accessibility and maximum efficiency across conditions. And the next plant delivers both. Stay tuned for the final components of the system. A system is only effective if it can be maintained. Light conditions vary, care routines fail, and most plants require consistency that many environments cannot provide. The next plant removes that limitation: golden pothos. Scientifically known as Epipremnum aureum, it is one of the most adaptable and resilient air-purifying plants available. It performs in conditions that limit most other species, including low and medium indirect light, which means it remains functional in bedrooms where sunlight is minimal or inconsistent. But adaptability is only part of its value. Its air purification capability is well documented. It removes compounds such as formaldehyde, benzene, xylene, and even carbon monoxide through both leaf absorption and root zone microbial activity. And unlike many plants, its effectiveness increases over time. As the root system expands, the rhizosphere becomes more active. More microbes, more processing capacity, which means the plant becomes more efficient as it matures. But the most important advantage is placement flexibility. Golden pothos is a trailing plant. This allows it to be positioned above ground level, on shelves or in hanging baskets. And this is not just aesthetic, it is strategic. Many airborne compounds accumulate higher in the room. By placing pothos near the ceiling, it interacts directly with this layer, capturing and processing pollutants where they concentrate. This adds vertical coverage to the system. Lower-level plants process dense compounds. Mid-level plants regulate humidity. Upper-level plants capture rising VOCs. Together, they create a full-spectrum air interaction zone. There is also a scalability advantage. Golden pothos can be propagated easily in water. A single cutting develops roots and becomes a new plant. This allows rapid expansion of plant density without additional cost. And density is what drives measurable air improvement. More plants, more surface area, more biological activity. Minimal maintenance, high tolerance, expanding capacity over time. This makes golden pothos one of the most practical and scalable components in a bedroom air system. But even with adaptability, one factor still determines overall performance: maximum output. And the final plant delivers the highest combined impact of them all. Among all tested indoor plants, one consistently ranks at the top for a single critical function. Its primary goal is formaldehyde removal, specifically the Boston fern. Scientifically known as Nephrolepis exaltata, this plant demonstrated the highest formaldehyde removal rate in controlled testing environments. Formaldehyde is not a minor pollutant. It is one of the most common and persistent airborne toxins in indoor spaces, released continuously from mattresses, pressed wood furniture, carpets, and synthetic materials, which makes its removal a priority, not optional. In testing conditions, the Boston fern outperformed nearly every other commonly available houseplant, not marginally, but significantly. This places it in a unique position within a bedroom system. It does not just contribute, it leads. But its function extends beyond chemical removal. The Boston fern also has one of the highest transpiration rates among indoor plants. It releases moisture continuously into the air, helping restore humidity levels in dry indoor environments. This dual function, pollutant removal and humidity addition, makes it one of the most biologically active plants in this entire system. However, performance comes with a requirement: humidity. The Boston fern thrives in moist environments. In dry air, it declines quickly, which means placement and care must support its needs. The most effective positions include near a bathroom, above a pebble tray with water, or within reach of occasional misting. When supported correctly, the plant stabilizes and performs consistently. Placement should be elevated. A hanging basket or plant stand allows airflow to pass through its dense fronds, increasing interaction with surrounding air. Light requirements are moderate. Bright indirect light is ideal, but it can tolerate slightly lower levels if humidity is maintained. This is not the easiest plant to manage, but it is one of the most effective. And in environments where formaldehyde exposure is high, its role becomes essential. Not decorative, not optional, functional. And once integrated properly, it becomes one of the strongest components in the entire system. Now let's bring everything together. At the highest level of performance, one plant brings everything together, not by specializing in one function, but by delivering across all of them. The Areca palm, scientifically known as Dipsis lutescens, it is widely regarded as one of the most effective overall plants for improving indoor air environments. Its strength is combination. It removes multiple airborne compounds, including formaldehyde, xylene, and toluene. It contributes to oxygen balance. And most importantly, it produces a significant amount of humidity through transpiration. A healthy Areca palm can release close to 1 liter of water vapor into the air over a 24-hour period. Inside a bedroom, this creates a measurable shift. Air becomes less dry. Breathing becomes easier. Sleep becomes more stable. This transforms the plant from passive decor into an active environmental regulator. Placement determines output. The Areca palm requires bright, indirect light and should be positioned near a window where it can sustain continuous growth. As a floor-standing plant, it also supports vertical airflow movement, helping distribute humidity and filtered air across the entire room. But the real power is not in one plant. It is in the system. When combined correctly, each plant you've seen performs a specific role. The snake plant continues oxygen release during the night. The spider plant and Boston fern focus on formaldehyde removal. The Areca palm and parlor palm regulate humidity. The Dracaena processes heavy VOCs at lower air levels. The golden pothos targets pollutants in the upper air layer. The peace lily stabilizes moisture and removes airborne toxins. The weeping fig captures particulate matter. The aloe vera acts as a visual air quality indicator. And lavender directly influences the nervous system, improving sleep onset and depth. This is not decoration. It is engineered biology, a multi-layered system working continuously. Without electricity, without noise, and without mechanical failure, each plant occupies a different layer of the room. Each performs a different function, and together they create a complete air ecosystem. Cleaner air, balanced humidity, reduced toxins, improved sleep physiology. You spend nearly 1/3 of your life in your bedroom, and the air in that space directly affects how well you recover, think, and function. This system gives you control. Not through devices, but through living systems, 12 plants, one integrated design, working every night silently while you sleep.